So wanted to give a couple of tips to new hunters or to hunters who still are having trouble finding deer or elk, finding the game they're after, is that every animal, they need three things. They need a source of food, they need a source of water to stay hydrated in hot weather, and they need cover. Their favorite, for cover, it is going to be their shelter. It's going to be their home where they sleep, where they rest, where they bed, where they take cover from predators, where they take cover from heat, where they take cover from rain, or from like thunderstorms. So primarily for deer, the clear cuts are their food source. In Oregon here, we don't have much trouble, at least on the west side, of water supply because it rains. There's a lot of creeks, and for shelter, they love thick forests. So to get your chances of harvesting an animal, a deer or an elk, I would highly recommend choosing one area. Of course, all of your scouting needs to be done before the season starts, because when the season starts, you're not scouting anymore, you're hunting. It's the same as all of your preparation for a test or an exam. It has to be done before the test or the exam starts. So all of your learning needs to be done before the season starts. So pre-scout your areas. What I like to do is I like to scout 3 new areas before the season starts, and then towards the beginning of the season, I choose one area and I will focus on that one area for the rest of the season, if there's animals, of course. And reason is because technically a deer will stay, they will live in 1 square mile or a couple square miles their entire life until they have to move, either because of logging or of people moving in or of new road construction in the forest, or something else happens. But you can assume that if you see a deer, he's going to stick around here in these couple square miles for the next couple years at least. So if you choose one area, like say you found a dead-end road with a couple of clear cuts for their food source and heavy timber for their shelter, for their cover, their bedding area, there's definitely has to be water in the area. So if you find an area like that, I would highly recommend just learning that area, learning those maybe 5-10 deer that live there on those clear cuts, learning their habits, learning where they like to bed, where do they go in the mornings to eat, which trails they use to come back into the timber to bed down, and then also learning, if you spook deer, where are they running, because they're not going to run for like 3 miles, like elk will sometimes. Deer know their home, they like to stick around, because if you spook them from one corner of the clear cut, they might run into a little canyon and drop down, and if you know that during hunting season, if you spook them, you can loop around and actually meet them on the other side, and they wouldn't expect you to do that because they have never had anybody do that to them, but because you learned their home, because you learned their habits, because you learned their trails, their bedding area, or their first bedding area and then their second bedding area, so you can just studying one area, just studying half a square mile or like 1 square mile, knowing every trail, knowing every boulder, every rock, every patch of opening or a patch of brush that deer like to stick around in or hide in. will you know, raise your success rate even higher just because you know the area. But imagine like hunting season starts, you haven't done any scouting, you're going out, first time you're on this road, you get to a clear cut that you saw on Google Maps, and there's like 5 trucks parked on that clear cut. That's a disappointment. That's one reason why I stopped rifle hunting, is because there's so many people out there. During archery season in September, there's a lot of hikers, there's a lot of people that still like to get out and go shooting, but less people who are hunting, you know, less people who are hiking through the forest because or shooting rifles and stuff. So let's see what else. Yeah, just learning the area, learning the deer, learning what they like, you know, where they like to eat in the mornings, where they like to eat in the evenings, will raise your success way up high. Another thing is hunting into the wind, because if the animal hears you or sees some movement, it might think that you're another animal, or you know, if you freeze and not move for a couple minutes, it might lose interest and think that it just saw something that's not there. But if the animal smells you, you're done. So that's one thing I learned. Always hunting with the wind in my face, because if the animal doesn't smell me, you can assume it does not know that you're there. So you can be within 20 yards of a bear, and that's what happened to me this year. I was within 7 yards of a bear, and he was coming to me because he thought I was an elk because I was downwind. I had a cow call in my mouth, and I kept calling, and because there were other elk around that I was trying to track, that bear thought I was an elk. So he just kept coming to me through the bushes with its little cub. That's dangerous. And I had to actually loop around the bear for the wind to carry my scent to the bear. And he didn't see me, but when she smelled me, they were gone. Both of them were gone. So, and I did that on purpose because I was going to an elk, and I got into this bear that was between me and the elk, and she was coming directly at me. I looped around like 10 yards for the wind to carry my scent to her, and as soon as she smelled me, she knew I was a human being. They were gone, and I was able to get to that bull. So learning the area, learning the wind, and learning what the animal likes to do, because in some areas, you know they have heavy cover, they can feed until 11 o'clock. In other areas and huge clear cuts, you know, where they have to walk quarter mile to the timber, they're going to be in the timber before the sun comes up, because they know they can't be caught in the middle of the day, in the middle of the clear cut, because of hunting pressure. They see, you know, trucks driving around, and the animals are smart. The animals are smart. You know, 24/7 they're eluding cougars, bears, humans, hunters, hikers. You know, they're not dumb. So you have to pretty much learn the animal's behaviors and try to be like an animal to get an animal. So if you're trying to get a deer, you gotta go where the deer want to go. You gotta do what the deer want to do. And if you want to get an elk, you gotta go to places the elk like. You know, if in September it's super hot and they want to be at 6,500 feet, you know, you gotta go to 6,500 feet. If they want to go even higher, you gotta go higher. If they want to drop down into a canyon because it's way too hot for them, you know, at 3,000 feet, they want to drop down to 2,000 feet, you got to do that. So you got to learn the animal, you got to learn the game, you got to learn what they want, you got to learn what they like, you got to learn their home, and that's when you become successful.